In today's game, if I come down and pound it, I'll get 40.
Today, Pippen has a chance to prove himself in this era, but he won't be alone.
If Jordan wants to average 50, if he was playing an era, I think he averages 50.
Also joined by Michael Jordan, as this legendary duo attempts to save the Chicago Bulls. Because this once great dynasty is now facing a reality of struggles year after year, led by a point guard with very questionable morals. So now Mike and Pippen will be taking charge of this young group to see if they can bring Chicago back to their glory days here in the modern NBA. Which to do so, they'll have 9 years together, just like in their era, as they'll be attempting to win 6 rings in today's NBA to prove themselves here. But the one issue was they weren't put in their primes, and instead would be starting at the same age as they played together in the 80s, meaning Scotty, as only a rookie, was fighting for minutes amongst the other forwards and would be putting up some very underwhelming stats in year 1. Mike, on the other hand, had 4 years of experience under his belt and would already be one of the best players in basketball, putting up some monster numbers himself on both ends of the floor. And while that was enough to help the Bulls move up to the 3rd seed and even win their first playoff series since Derrick Rose, defeating the Pacers in round 1, in the end, these weren't real contenders just yet, with Cleveland completely crushing their hopes in the next round, ending the first season relatively quickly. But with their entire young core developing, they wouldn't be down for long. Because the very next year, Pippen was taking a big jump, nearly doubling his points output from his rookie debut, but more importantly, he was a major glue defensively. Although that was still far off from the 40 he claimed he could average, but luckily for Chicago, Mike was fitting in very well, landing in the top 3 for scoring around the league, helping the Bulls land the top seed for the first time in over a decade. And come the playoffs, the Bulls are making up for last year's problems, getting revenge on the Cavaliers in the 2nd round, sweeping the team that sent them packing last year, to then move on to the conference finals against the Knicks. And unfortunately for any New York fans, MJ was still apparently the bane of that franchise, scorching them game after game, sweeping yet another round, and as they prepare for the NBA Finals, they were looking unstoppable, that is, until their final hurdle.
I believe he's the 2nd greatest foreign-born player behind Hakeem Olajuwon.
Legacy, obviously one of the greatest pure scorers I've ever seen. One of the most all-around skilled basketball players we've ever seen.
The Bulls' young squad was packed with talented guards and wings, but their glaring weakness was in the front court, which was brought even more to light against one of the best bigs in the league. Victor was crushing the Bulls, and they didn't even stand a chance. After only losing 1 game in the East, they'd lose 4 straight here in the finals. Did not expect in just year 2 in the modern NBA for Mike's perfect 6-0 finals legacy to come to a screeching halt. Meaning now, with only 7 seasons left, there was very little room for error if they were going to win 6 rings. But on the bright side, they were about to break through, finding themselves right back in the playoffs, where they'd make quick work of the Atlanta Hawks in the 1st round, and then in the 2nd round for their 3rd installment with Cleveland, the weakness at center was still apparent, but thanks to Jordan averaging 32 points per night in this series, he would have enough to get his team over the hurdle, despite this being a physical, drawn-out 7 games. And as they meet up with the Knicks yet again, you can probably predict what was going to happen. And even though they'd be tired down from the previous round, they still had little issue overcoming New York, winning this one in 6, preparing for their 2nd straight finals appearance. This time against the league's MVP, Cooper Flagg, who's quickly developed into a star. And of course, he was paired alongside Kyrie Irving, averaging a career high this season. But these guys were the least of the Bulls' worries. With elite defenders like Mike and Scotty to throw at Dallas' 2 main stars, they wouldn't be a huge factor in this series. Where there would be struggles, however, was yet again in the front court, with the Bulls having difficulties banging down low with Anthony Davis. There were games here in this finals that AD was simply willing his team to the victory, regardless of how well the Bulls played. And if it wasn't for Mike playing his absolute best, this could have been a repeat of last season. Luckily though, Jordan will have just enough to help his team here, along with some exceptional play from his supporting cast, developing nicely alongside their new superstars, and in the end, they just barely come out on top, winning their first NBA championship in the modern NBA, defeating Dallas after 6 games, with the Finals MVP unsurprisingly going to Mike, as our star duo keeps their hopes alive of winning their 6 rings, but the real test was if they could keep this winning up. But as they look ahead to attempt a repeat, it would be with a major roster change, signing Isaiah Stewart as their starting center after Vucevic retired, which would give the Bulls a very different look, now lacking an offensive big man. But honestly, for Mike and Pippen, this could have been a blessing in disguise, because if you remember, their dynasty in the 90s was with defensive-minded role player centers, and it would show, with Pippen cracking his career high in points per game so far, as Michael Jordan continues to be one of the best players around the league, leading to possibly the Bulls' best playoff run yet, winning the conference once more, only to prepare for a rematch with a familiar foe. Victor Wembanyama, who was now in some unfamiliar threads, joining the Warriors, with a 41-year-old Stephen Curry making one final push. But Jordan and his co-star were far more confident this time around, both largely improved from their last meeting. Although with 6'8" Stewart being the best match for Victor, Chicago is experiencing many of the same struggles as last time, with Wemby more often than not being a score up and over the defense, and that's before mentioning Steph was still a knockdown shooter, which would come as a gut punch for our stars, as Golden State takes a commanding 2-0 lead, giving a sense of deja vu, at risk of falling in a sweep against Wembanyama yet again, only further threatened by the results of Game 3. Trailing late in Cali, at risk of falling to 3-0 unless the Bulls can claw back. Chicago finds themselves trailing not only the series 2-0, but trailing late in Game 3, risk of going down 3-0, down by 1. Mike in the post versus the larger defender, an insane shot attempt. Victor Wembanyama with the rebound. Steph Curry now trying to extend the Warriors' lead above 1. We have Scottie Pippen guarding Wemby. Interesting matchup. Cenac Jr. Mike on him. They're going back and forth. The post fade. His is off. Thankfully, the Bulls catch a break here. Kobe White now on the other end. They're going back to Mike again. Mike the drive. Getting by Cenac. Jordan rules in the modern era. Hard foul. MJ did hit both free throws to take the lead now. 41-year-old Stephen Curry with Josh Giddey guarding him. Still electrifying and still quick. Blown by Josh. The pull-up Jay gives the Warriors the lead right back. What a difficult shot. Michael Jordan now at risk of his legacy going into complete crap. Down 3-0 in the finals. Driving in on pods. Mike nowhere to go. Mike is getting clamped up. Mike the drive. His lay is off. He gets the board. Mike the putback. He blows the second lay. Kispert with the ball now on the break. Scottie Pippen trying to guard him. Steph wide open in the corner. He doesn't pull the trigger to catch a break. The tough lay. It's off. Mike with the ball now. A minute left in this game. Down by 1 late. You have to score here. Jordan got pod stunned for a moment. Loses his dribble. Finds Scottie trying to save the day. Scottie's denied. The Bulls are crumbling in this huge moment. Steph with it now. They're slowing it down. Curry. Josh Giddey guarding him. Trying to stay with Stephen Curry late. 45 seconds left in the game. Victor Wembanyama with the screen. Buzelis is there. Curry coming around the screen. Giddey recovers. It's off. Wemby fights for the board. His putback. It's off. Wemby the board again. Another putback. It's off. The Bulls the ball. They're not going to use the timeout. Non-stop action. A 5-on-4 break. Jordan drives in from the corner. MJ denied. MJ denied at the rim. And age may have finally caught up to Steph. He split the free throw. So the Bulls are only down 2 now. They can tie it or win it with a 3. And are they going to go to Michael Jordan? He has struggled here late in this game. But are they going to trust him with the last shot? The best player in the roster. Are they going to give someone else an opportunity? 12 seconds left in the game. It looks like either way, they're letting this game clock wind down. Jordan with it. Pawns on him. Giddey wide open for the win. Giddey! Josh the Diddler! He hits it! As a Bulls fan, I had to grab the Giddey jersey after that one. I tried not to be biased in these videos, but this is an exciting finish for me. Steph with the ball. 3 seconds left. Can he stun Chicago to pull up? Over Giddey. It's off! The Bulls survive. The season is not over yet. And following that huge victory, Mike was about to turn things up a notch, taking it personal that the media thought he'd be swept again. Coming out the rest of the series like a man on a mission, possessed by the idea of revenge, taking over not just 1 or even 2 games, but the following 3 games in a row, leading to a Bulls come from behind championship, completing the repeat, and now inching 1 step closer to their ultimate goal of 6. But as the 2030 season concludes with a rematch for 2029, the Warriors were threatening the Bulls' potential dynasty, because after the defeat, Curry decided to postpone retirement and make one more push at Ring 5. which may have been the perfect decision because despite being 42 years old, he was still undoubtedly the best shooter in the entire league, and he was lighting up Chicago from everywhere, taking a convincing 3-1 lead over the defending champions, which of course wouldn't be the end, with our star duo fighting back to make this series more competitive, winning 2 more games to force the series to a final 7th installment, which is something Mike and Scotty never experienced in the 90s. But unfortunately, this hyped up conclusion would be far from interesting. It was all the Warriors from start to finish, closing out Steph's career and the lasting legacy in the Bay with one final championship. He thrown in the Bulls in a blowout Game 7, ending the hopes for a three-peat here, but more importantly, raising the pressure to the max for Scotty and Mike. With only 4 seasons left, there was zero room for error now. So that would lead to doubts come the 2031 season, where at first glance seeing a drastic drop in Jordan's scoring output may lead you to think the Bulls' contention hopes were flying out the window. But in reality, Chicago was having possibly their best run in the simulation so far, with the entire team starting to contribute as the young players have developed and become more incorporated into the team's offense, leading to Mike's drop in production. For Pippen, on the other hand, his personal numbers looked great, with his assists per game skyrocketing as he played a point forward role, orchestrating the offense for so many talented pieces. And with everything clicking, the Bulls were rolling through all of their competition in the East. Much like we've seen every year so far, nobody in the conference was a true challenge, and only the West Juggernauts had a real chance, which this year would be an incredibly surprising team with an even more shocking star. Nikola Jokic joined Sacramento this offseason, attempting to help a young up-and-coming roster make that push to the next level, and I was genuinely impressed by Sacramento. I am genuinely blown away that the Kings are as good as they are. They finally built a good roster. They have some good veterans like Nikola Jokic and Derek White, a lot of really good, young, athletic talent that can shoot, score, defend. Really impressed. This is the best year the Sacramento Kings have had in their entire franchise. But even with as impressive as it was that the Kings finally made it to this pinnacle, we're going to keep things short, because unfortunately for Sacramento fans, they were running into the Bulls at the worst possible time, not only crushing them easily in just 5 games here, but then in 2032 we'd have a finals rematch where the Bulls were firing on all cylinders. They were continuing to play great as a unit, with 8 players on a roster averaging double digits, and even though Stokes improved greatly for the Kings, Chicago was too hot for any team to interrupt their run, easily completing their second repeat, now bringing up their ring total to 4, meaning with 2 seasons left in this challenge, they have just enough time to get 6 rings. But there was one huge problem. The Chicago Bulls may have been getting too good, because with the entire roster creeping into their primes, touches with the ball were becoming more and more scarce. So while the team was still winning plenty with our duo seeing the ball less, you have to wonder how long this would be sustainable for, especially when you look at Jordan's scoring output. 18 points per game. That is pretty insane. Over the years, 2K has had his shot tendency going down a little bit. I don't agree with it. I don't think Mike would be giving up his shots, regardless of how good his teammates are. But that's what 2K is saying is going to happen. I also think it's crazy he doesn't have any MVPs, but he's sharing the rock a lot. And he is very, very efficient. And with that, his team is actually finding a lot of success, blazing through the conference again, preparing for their 7th straight finals in a rematch of the 2028 finals. Once again, facing Cooper Flagg and his intimidating Dallas Mavericks. This team still featured Kyrie Irving, albeit in his late 30s now and not as scary, but Christian Collins, on the other hand, was a huge problem. He started off his career in Chicago, struggling to get minutes and averaging less than 1 point a game his first few seasons. But since moving on from the Bulls, he's been the most improved player and molded to an MVP caliber guy, and his taste for revenge was clear, putting Dallas ahead after 5 games, now putting Mike and Pippen under the most pressure they've had in this sim. So this following Game 6 was critical, with the entire challenge on the line. And with the stakes at their highest, MJ was throwing the team dynamic out the window, and he was coming out scoring at will in an attempt to force his team into a final Game 7. But with Cooper Flagg playing just as well, there was no guarantees the Bulls would finish this one on top, because as we get to the final minutes, the Bulls were barely hanging on to their lead late. Chicago is currently only up by 1 with just over 2 minutes left, the entire season on the line. They desperately need to get a stop against Dallas here. They've been having a hard time. Cooper Flagg coming around the screen to pull up over Scotty. That one rims out. If that would have went in, that could have been bad news. Josh Giddey now On the other end, Dallas trying to get a stop. Josh Giddey draws the foul. Giddey did end up making both free throws, extended the Bulls lead 2-3 now with just under 2 minutes remaining. Cooper Flag wide open after Pippen went for the steal. Gets him back within one. That is a risky gamble here late in a huge game like this from Scottie Pippen. Josh Giddey with it now. The smaller Kyrie on him. Michael Jordan trying to find an opening. They try to get it to Michael. Dyson Daniels. He's the fastest guy on the break. No foul there. He still makes it. Wow. Down by one. Josh Giddey with the ball. They're doing the exact same sequence as last time. This time, though, Josh is driving it in. A lot of contact there. Again, no foul, but he makes it. The Mavericks now on the other end. Scottie Pippen is smothering Cooper Flag right here. One of the best players in the league by this point in the sim. Flag finds an old agent Kyrie Irving. Getting a screen from Derek Lively. Kyrie to pull up. It's off. I thought that one was about to go. Mike with the rebound. Off to the races on the other end. Josh Giddey again. They're feeding Josh here late. Oh, it's going to Mike. Mike in the post versus Kyrie. This is an easy mismatch. They bring the quick double. The double's there. The recovery to help on Mike, but he drills it. 3-point game. The Mavericks now. Cooper Flag. Where is Scottie? Where is Scottie? I can't even get hype for nothing here. I'm losing my voice if you haven't heard. I'm sick. I apologize, but where does Scottie Pippen go right there? Chicago now coming at the timeout. It's a tied game with 50 seconds left. Michael Jordan was one of the best defenders. He tries to pull up over him, and Mike gets it to go. What a shot by Michael Jordan late in this game. 44 seconds left now. The Dallas Mavericks with it. Kyrie, Josh Giddey on him. He's getting the screen from Collins. Kyrie will pull up three to take the lead. Kyrie, an unbelievable shot. This is a 40-year-old Kyrie with a huge basket there. Mike driving it in. Daniels still on him. The tough shot at the post. It's off. Lively to board. That is not good. Dallas not in the bonus set either, so the Mavs can burn more clock. And Chicago still has to foul here. Off the inbound. Let's get an inbound steal. They get it a Cooper Flag. Flag did hit the first free throw. The second free throw put them up by 3. Chicago does have a timeout, though, either way if they want to use it. He hits the free throw. Bulls do use the timeout. The Bulls now coming into the timeout. You have to see a huge basket here if they're going to force a game 7 and save the entire challenge. The whole challenge is on the line. You lose this game, you cannot get the 6 rings in a modern NBA in the given time limit. 14 seconds left in the game. Josh Giddey with it. Naz Reid? No, Naz Reid? What are we doing here, man? What are we doing? Cooper Flag hits the first free throw. Probably hits the second. Either way, it's a 2-possession game. No timeouts at all for the Bulls. You're going to have to go quick, and the 2K AI is not smart enough to even make this possible. Realistically, he needed to get the ball way closer to that 3-point line off the inbound. Naz Reid again. Is that their best shooter? He hits that. Oh, my goodness. It's over. After that gut-wrenching defeat, the Bulls fall short of winning Ring 5, which unfortunately now means, with only 1 season remaining, our duo can't possibly complete their goal of winning 6 rings, and even trying to earn a 5th in the last season didn't look promising. We'd see Jordan take back full control of the team, increasing his scoring output back close to the 30 points per game mark, keeping his team competitive, but everything was just seeming to fall apart. The whole group was still playing well, but something just wasn't clicking, plummeting down to the 8th seed in the East, which landed them a matchup against Indiana in round 1, led by the same star they defeated to start their careers in 2026. And in poetic fashion, this one was ending full circle against the same team it started against. Indy, led by Halliburton and a cast of near all-stars, were beating down the Bulls, abruptly ending their attempt at a dynasty here. But even still, winning 4 rings in 9 years is incredibly impressive in this era, and you'll have to be the judge of how well they performed. But what if another all-time great duo like Shaq and Kobe joined the modern NBA? Find out by clicking this video next.